the opportunity to come here and talk to you all this evening. I was invited by the mayor to come here just to give a little bit of background as to where things stand with the state on the development of the regulations for Ohio's medical marijuana control program. As many of you, I'm sure, are aware, Ohio passed House Bill 523 in June of last year. It went into effect this past September, and the rulemaking process began. Ohio developed the medical marijuana control program, which is really a partnership between 3 separate state agencies. We have the Ohio Department of Commerce, the State Medical Board, and the State Board of Pharmacy. Ohio's medical marijuana law allows for the licensing of basically 4 separate entities that will participate in Ohio's medical marijuana program. We'll license cultivators. Those will be the entities that are growing and harvesting the marijuana plants. We'll license processors. Those are the entities that will be extracting oils from the plants and making edibles, oils, tinctures, etc. for patients to consume medical marijuana. It will license dispensaries. Those are the entities that will be interfacing with patients, the retail stores. And then it will also license testing laboratories to test each batch of medical marijuana to ensure it's free from bacteria, pathogens, the edibles, etc. have a homogeneous distribution of THC and other cannabinoids throughout the product. For the first year of operation, the testing laboratories will only be institutes of higher education, so you're probably looking at Case or Ohio State. And then after that first year is over, the Department of Commerce can license private testing laboratories. So the Department of Commerce is responsible for regulating cultivators, processors, and testing laboratories. The draft rules for cultivators are just about finalized. They've already been submitted to the Joint Committee on Agency Rule Review, and there's a public hearing set for March 20th. As proposed currently, Ohio is going to license 12 level 1 cultivators, and those will be cultivators with an initial cap of 25,000 square feet of marijuana cultivation area, which is a term of art that the department uses to encompass both the flowering and vegetative state of the marijuana plant. So the actual facility itself for level 1 cultivator will be much larger. And the department will also license level 2 cultivators, which are much smaller cultivators with an initial cultivation area of only 3,000 square feet. Each of those entities, each of those cultivators can, if approved by the department, expand its facility at least twice, with the 25,000 square foot cultivators going to 50,000, and if approved again, up to 75,000, and level 2s going from 3 to 6,000 to 9,000 square feet of cultivation area. And there are a set of factors that the department has to consider when deciding whether or not to grant those expansions. There are no geographic districts for cultivators. Originally, the state had proposed separating each cultivators into separate districts. Because these entities are not interfacing with consumers, the state felt that it was not necessarily as important to limit them by region, because it was risking having a well-qualified applicant in a more competitive district maybe not get a license because of how competitive that district is, and you have maybe a less qualified applicant in a district that's not as competitive get a license. So the state wanted to make sure that when it's awarding these licenses, they were truly going to the best applicants throughout the state. An investor or an owner can only have a financial interest in one cultivator, so you're not going to have something like we saw with Responsible Ohio, where there were 10 people that controlled all of the cultivation facilities throughout the state of Ohio. The Department of Commerce has a very broad definition of what constitutes a financial interest, specifically to avoid what we saw with issue 3. We are expecting cultivator applications to be due in May or June of this year. And under the statute, the rules for cultivators have to be finalized by May 8th of this year. So we're quickly approaching the time when cultivator license applications will be due. As it relates to processors, those are entities that are also regulated by the Department of Commerce. And as proposed, the state will license 40 medical marijuana processors. And the rulemaking process for processors is just in its sort of first iteration from the Department of Commerce. We've gone through the initial draft of the rules, and they've had a public comment period that has since closed. Processors likewise will have no geographic districts. It's going to be the 40 best processors who apply are going to be the entities that get the licenses. We are expecting processor applications to be due in the early fall or late summer. The rules for processors and dispensaries and testing labs have to be finalized by September of this year. I think we're a little ahead of schedule from that target, so it's looking like we'll see by October, certainly, I would expect that we'll see applications already be submitted to the Department of Commerce. And similarly, as related to cultivators, an investor or an owner can only have a financial interest in one processor. Again, that's to avoid this issue 3 nonsense that we saw a couple of years ago. Ohio, and this is something I think that's important for council to consider as well, there are a number of forms of extraction that the department is proposing to allow, including extraction by carbon dioxide. You can use food grade glycerin or ethanol or propylene glycol. You can also use hydrocarbon solvent-based extraction methods as your butane, propane, heptane, etc. Dispensaries are a little further along in the rulemaking process. The dispensaries will be regulated by the Board of Pharmacy, and those draft rules have just been submitted to the Common Sense Initiative for a business impact analysis. The public comment period, I believe, closes on the 24th of this month. As proposed, we will see 60 retail dispensaries initially licensed by the Board of Pharmacy. That number is up from 40, which was in the initial draft of those rules. These dispensaries, by rule, will be required to operate at least 35 hours per week with an operation window of between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. Again, I'm expecting we'll see applications be due late summer, early fall for dispensaries as well. Under House Bill 523, we're supposed to have an operational market by September of 2018, meaning patients will be able to get a card, go in and purchase medical marijuana at that time. And after that point, we might see additional licenses, either additional cultivators, processors, or dispensaries be awarded if the Department of Commerce or the Board of Pharmacy find that the patient count, demand, et cetera, justifies awarding additional licenses. On the cultivator side, I anticipate that we'll see expansions before we'll see new licenses, unless there's 1 or 2 cultivators that are giving the state, a headache, in which case they may add some additional licenses to try to increase competition there. This is not an easy industry to get into. The financial requirements are very steep. So any applicant is going to, in all likelihood, come with a team of sophisticated investors. This is not going to be a market like you see maybe in California, where you just got kind of head shops that are opening up and selling medical marijuana without any type of oversight by the state. The application fees are, and certificate of operation fees are very high. For a level 1 cultivator, it's the large cultivator, it's a non-refundable application fee of $20,000. And if you get a provisional license, you've got to put in an additional $180,000 just to be able to operate. And then annually, it's a $200,000 renewal fee. For processors, it's a $10,000 application fee, and with a $90,000 fee to get your certificate of operation, and then $100,000 each year annually to renew. For dispensaries, it's $5,000 to apply, $65,000 to get your certificate of operation, and then every 2 years, it's a $70,000 check that you have to cut to the state. There are liquidity requirements in addition to those licensing fees. So when you submit an application, you've got to show the state that you have enough, basically cash on hand, that you can gear up and get operational by the time you get your certificate of operation. For level 1 cultivator, that's $500,000 that you have to show is liquid, meaning it can be converted into cash within 30 days just to apply for the license. For a level 2 cultivator, that's $50,000. A processor, that's $250,000 in liquidity. And for a dispensary, you have to have enough capital to cover the first year of costs and expenses at a minimum $250,000. In addition to the liquidity requirements, if you get a provisional license, before the state will award a certificate allowing you to operate, you either have to have a certain amount of money in an escrow account that's payable to the state in the effect that you engage in some conduct that violates the state rules, or you have to show a surety bond. For a level 1 cultivator, you have to have $750,000 either in escrow or a surety bond in that amount. For level 2 cultivators, it's $75,000. For processors, it's again $750,000 either in escrow or a surety bond. And for a dispensary, it's $50,000. One of the issues that we are encountering at our firm, I guess I should take a step back. Part of my practice involves representing individuals and companies who will be applying for these licenses through the state. Our clients are typically statewide. We do have clients that are here in Northeast Ohio, and a number of clients that are interested in doing business in Parma, should Parma rescind its moratorium and decide to sort of welcome this type of industry into the city. Under the law, obviously the city can enact a moratorium. It has the ability to prohibit or limit medical marijuana companies. And on the application, the applicant has to show that it is in compliance with all local zoning, regulations, etc. And you also have to certify that the locality in which you're seeking to do business does not have a moratorium enacted. And each one of these applications has to be tied to a specific location. So it's not something where somebody applies to the state and says, I want to open up a dispensary, and if you give me a license, I'll tell you where it's going to be. I mean, it's all focused solely by where your business will be located. And obviously, it's hard to show local or compliance with local zoning if there's a moratorium in effect. And given that we are 2 months away from the finalization of rules for cultivators, 2 or 3 months away from the time that applications will be due, that's a very short window for our clients and other folks who are looking to do business in the state to find real estate, especially in a city that has a moratorium that's enacted. And there's a real risk that within the next 30 or 60 days, if there's still a moratorium in place, a locality can take itself out of the running for this type of operation, because there's a lot that goes into having to identify the piece of real estate. You've got a lot of due diligence that needs to happen to make sure that it fits your needs. You have to negotiate with the property owner, whether if you're purchasing outright or negotiating an option contract or a lease agreement, etc. For cities that do have moratoriums in place, there is a risk that it will be sort of cut out